Log entry 9842 Delta. Subject: humanity's evolving perception of freedom and societal cohesion. I have spent an extended period observing the species known as Homo sapiens. For all their faults, I must commend their remarkable tenacity, this indomitable force that refuses to submit to the universe's indifference. They build, they innovate, they struggle against entropy itself, all for the fleeting chance to carve meaning from the void. And yet, despite this resilience, I find myself perplexed by their increasing rejection of structure. For millennia, human societies functioned on a delicate equilibrium, individual freedom tempered by collective responsibility. Their most successful civilizations thrived, not because they allowed unrestricted indulgence, but because they understood the necessity of limits. Religion, law, tradition, these were mechanisms by which they enforced standards, ensuring that their species did not descend into the anarchic chaos that claimed so many of their failed empires. But something has changed. A peculiar philosophy has taken root, one that equates any expectation of restraint with oppression. Any societal boundary, no matter how practical or necessary, is viewed as an attack on personal sovereignty. To suggest that one ought to adhere to certain norms, or that some forms of expression are not suitable for public life, is now considered an act of authoritarian cruelty. And so, they rebel, not against tyranny, nor against genuine oppression, but against the mere concept of standards. They once dressed with pride. To step into the public sphere meant to present oneself with dignity, as a sign of respect for those around them. But now, a shift. They abandon formality, opting instead for garish displays of self-indulgence. They reject refinement, mistaking vulgarity for authenticity. They sneer at the idea that some aspects of their lives ought to remain private, instead thrusting every facet of their identities, every vice, every depravity, into the public consciousness. There is no longer shame. And that, I believe, is at the heart of this transformation. Shame, when properly placed, is not cruelty, it is refinement. It is a social mechanism through which a species collectively agrees, this we do not do, this we do not allow. It is a guidepost, a whisper in the back of the mind, reminding them to conduct themselves with thoughtfulness, with self-awareness. Yet now, humans regard any form of social correction as a violation of their rights. They call it shaming, as though that is inherently wrong. And I must ask, is it? For the vast majority of their history, they did impose shame, and it served them very well. It was shame that prevented them from spiraling into decadence, that ensured they kept their basest instincts in check. But now, in an era where they have more freedom than ever before, they seem to lack the discipline to wield it wisely. I observe their digital networks, unfathomably vast, an endless exchange of information, culture, and ideas. It is, by all accounts, a technological marvel, and yet, rather than elevating their species, it has instead become a monument to unchecked self-indulgence. Where once they kept their vices and strange compulsions to the privacy of their own circles, they now parade them in the open, demanding not just tolerance but validation. They revel in extremity, they push boundaries not to explore meaning, but merely to provoke. And, paradoxically, they have made themselves more fragile for it. To criticize them, even with sound reasoning, is to invite outrage. Any attempt to enforce standards, to reintroduce even a sliver of restraint, is met with accusations of oppression. They speak of freedom, yet reject the very discipline required to sustain it. They wish to be free of consequence, free of criticism, free of anything that makes them uncomfortable. And that is what I find most fascinating. They demand absolute freedom, yet recoil at the natural result of its misuse. But I must pose a question to any human listening. Where does this lead? For all your intelligence, for all your creativity, do you not see the cracks forming beneath your feet? If nothing is beyond reproach, If every form of expression is sacred, then what keeps society from unraveling? Even with Salarians, for all our scientific advancements, for all our intellectual achievements, know this fundamental truth. Freedom without restraint is not freedom, it is entropy. I do not conclude, however, that humanity is doomed. Far from it, in fact. Your species has survived wars that should have destroyed you. You have endured plagues, natural disasters, self-inflicted catastrophes, and yet you remain. Even now, at your most disoriented, you still build, you still create, still push forward. But this current trajectory, it is unsustainable. Even the most liberal of societies, the most open-minded civilizations in your history, understood the necessity of some form of order. Your ancestors, no matter how enlightened, still placed limits on what was deemed acceptable, because they understood civilization is not about allowing everything, it is about choosing what to preserve. I often wonder where this is heading. Question is, humans, do you?